Welcome back. Today we are going to do processing and regulating emotions. And you probably heard a little bit about this because emotional intelligence is being taught in schools, and I'm sure your parents have helped you figure out feelings, how to handle them, how to deal with them, how to calm down. That's what processing and regulating means. So you're probably a little aware. The first handout I want you to look at is fight or flight. So again, we have those cavemen, right? Because they are looking, they're using that brain stem, that first part of the brain that's developed, and they're trying to figure out if they're going to survive. So in survival mode, and then also when we're acting out of the amygdala, which again is that feeling brain, we're just going into our feelings, right? So when you have a stress response, meaning something is unpleasant and you're not in that prefrontal cortex, you're not able to think it through, plan it out, you are often going to go into fight or flight. So those are two of the four trauma responses. There are four, but just to make it easier, I want to do those real basic ones, fight or flight. There's also fawn or freeze. Freeze is just like it sounds, when you just stop in your tracks and you just don't do anything. You might continue physically doing something, but you're frozen emotionally, or you're frozen with that stress and you're not really responding to it. You're not feeling, processing, regulating that emotion. And then fawn, if you've ever heard that term, when you fawn over someone, you're trying really hard to please or appease, which is make them happy. You're looking at their feelings. So if someone says a rude comment to you, or someone tries to pick a fight with you, you fawn. You are, oh, yes, you're wonderful. Oh, I like you. Oh, your hair looks so cute. You're so fun. You're such a good athlete. You fawn over them. So you kind of acquiesce to that person. And that's not really good either, right? Because you're not really addressing that stress response. You're not processing and regulating your feelings. You're just trying to make someone else feel good. Okay, so we are going to focus just on fight or flight because those are pretty much the basic ones that we use when we are in that stress response. So this is where our calming down techniques come in. This is where we want to use that ABC handout, where we're allowing the feeling, breathing through the feeling, and calling the feeling by name. Okay, so if you see the handout that has ABC on it, and the first thing I want you to notice is all the emotions on there. So just think in your mind, or if you want to look at the pictures, the emojis, or maybe write down, what are emotions? And what are some examples of emotions that you might have? There are a ton, right? You could be stressed, you could be tired, you could be angry, you could be frustrated, you could be sad, you could be depressed, you could be anxious, you could be calm, you could be joyful, you could be peaceful, you could be excited, you could be jealous, you could be so many things, all right? Disgusted, bored. It goes on and on and on, okay? So we just want to kind of jog our memory of different feelings we have. And then I want you to also, when we're talking about this, try to listen to your body where you might feel that emotion. Some people say when they're angry, their shoulders get tense, and maybe they even bring their shoulders up a little bit, or they clench their fists. Okay, so you kind of feel that in your fists or your shoulders. When they're worried or nervous, they get a stomach ache. So you kind of feel that tension in your belly. When they're excited, maybe they can just feel their smile, so you can feel it in your face. Or even your hands can tense up like they do in anger and frustration, but with excitement. Those are just some examples and possibilities. I don't know exactly where you are feeling it in your body, but that's also just good to be aware, because then if that's a pattern for you, then the next time you go to process an emotion and use this ABC exercise for regulating, you're able to kind of figure out what the emotion is just by knowing where in your body you're feeling it. Sadness, you might feel in your chest, or if you're anxious, you might also feel a tightness in your chest. If you're jealous, maybe it's in your stomach again. Sometimes even in the forehead, you might feel hot. when you're embarrassed, but also when you're angry or anxious. You might just start to feel warm. Some people sweat when they're nervous, so you might feel warm in here or in here in your cheeks. Okay, so those are all some options. Okay, so some people, it helps to actually take their hands and place them on that place in the body. So the shoulders, the forehead, the cheeks, the chest, your stomach. Now, if your hands are what you're feeling, it's kind of hard to put your hands on your hands, but just maybe to shake out your fingers, wiggle them, shake out the wrists, roll the wrists, okay? Just to recognize that's where the tension is. And that kind of connects your brain to that part of your body where the feeling is, and then we get all connected, our body, our brain, and our heart. So that's a good connection to have, and then we have everything focusing on the feeling. Okay, so back to fight or flight, just to give you a little bit more of that. And I said this in the triangle video, but just to reiterate, when you have a stress response, so again, something upsets you, so we would say a negative or unpleasant emotion or emotion you don't really want to have, you're in a negative situation, you might fight. So what does that look like? You argue with the person. You call them a name. You yell. Yeah, you throw something. Okay, you stomp your foot. Okay. Now flight, what might that look like? You go to your room. You leave the room. You pick up your phone and scroll. You go put the TV on. You go get a book. Okay, so flight sometimes looks a little bit more peaceful because you're not fighting with someone, but you're also not addressing the feeling. So it would be better to feel the feeling than to ignore it by fighting or fleeing. Okay, so how do we do this? And that's when we bring again in the ABC. So the first letter A, I made this up just to help us remember a quick exercise when we have those strong, intense emotions and we don't have time to think about the triangle or cognitive behavior theory, right? We're in the stress response, we're in that amygdala, and we're not thinking straight. So we're not up in the prefrontal cortex. We are not being logical, rational, reasonable. So you can remember ABC, simplest 3 letters, right? Those first 3 letters of the alphabet you learn. So A, you're going to allow it, which I know sounds silly, but a lot of times we say, oh, I shouldn't be mad at her, or I shouldn't be sad about that, or that shouldn't have made me angry, or we don't even know how we feel. So we come home after school and we cry, or we come home after school and we throw our book bag down, right? Or we grab something from a little sibling, or we roll our eyes at our parents, or say something mean to them, and we don't even know why because we don't really know our feelings. So this is how we want to start, is just allowing them, because sometimes you don't even know what they are, or you're not allowing yourself to feel it. So you want to allow it. If it's sadness, you just say, I'm going to allow myself to feel this. Whatever the feeling is, okay? So you're just going to tell yourself that we're going to allow it. We're going to enter into A, B, C. Okay, but we can't do that if we're in denial or fighting reality or ignoring reality. Okay, so you just say, I'm allowing the feeling. Whatever it is, I'm not sure even. And then we breathe. So B is for breathing. There are so many great breathing techniques out there. My favorite is the square breathing, which has proven to reset our vagus nerve, which is in that bottom part of the brain that is connected to all the other nerves. And it really affects stress and just a lot in our bodies. And it's good when we are in a stress mode to calm it down, okay? So square breathing has that name because it has 4 parts to it, just like a square has 4 sides. So you start by inhaling for 4 seconds. That's the first line of the square. Then you hold it for 4 seconds, second line of the square. Then you exhale for 4 seconds, third line of the square, and then you hold it for 4 seconds. So that's the 4 lines. Okay, so we're going to practice that. And I want you to remember, a lot of us forget, when we are breathing, we don't breathe with shoulders, right? There's no air in your shoulders. And really, it's not in your chest either, right? Your air is where in your diaphragm, right? In your lungs. So it's actually your rib cage and your stomach where it's going to come out of. And so you want to actually think of your stomach as expanding. So it's kind of like when air goes in a balloon, you see the balloon expand. And when air comes out of a balloon, you see the balloon get flat. Okay, so we don't want to be breathing like this. That's not the right way. You want to be breathing like this. Okay, and I just taught this lesson to 2 adults that are in their 30s. So this is not a little kid thing. This is just all this stuff that I've said in all the videos, and I'm going to say in the next video, I work with adults. So don't feel like this is kid stuff. This is just, like I said, helpful stuff for everyone because we all have brains, we all have emotions, and we're all going to be dealing with thoughts and feelings and actions as long as we live on this earth, right? So we're going to breathe in for 4 seconds. Again, you want to expand your belly. So you breathe out and in more than up and down, okay? Okay, so here we go. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then just hold, 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, inhale, hold, exhale, hold. Now, since we do 4 seconds 4 times, we know that 4 times 4 is 16, right? So just 16 seconds it's going to take. I think it's at least 2 times to kind of calm that nervous system down. Some people like to spend more time. I actually love to do square breathing at night when I'm either worried about something or thinking about something or my mind's racing or I'm trying to think about the next day and I just can't calm down. So those 16 seconds help me, and I just do it over and over until I'm sleeping. Okay, so after you tell yourself, we're going to A, allow the feeling, and then B, we're going to breathe. Then we're going to go into C. And that's where we call it by name. Now, you might know before you even allow or breathe that you're angry. You might know that you're sad, okay? But we're just going to, again, reiterate the name of the feeling. So whatever it might be, anxious, stressed, tired, annoyed, okay? And I know I mentioned positive emotions at the beginning of this video, but usually we do this for negative emotions. Because if you're happy, if you're joyful, excited, if you're just in a good mood, you really don't need to be processing and regulating. Regulating is when we're not in the right place, right? We need to bring ourselves back. We're dysregulated, okay? And when we're having a hard time with an emotion, our emotion doesn't feel good, we don't want to deal with it, we don't want to process it, okay? So process going through it and dealing with it. So usually this is going to be negative, okay? But you can practice with any emotion, just calling it what it is, giving it a name, accepting it, okay? So again, allow and accept, breathe, and then call by name. Okay, and the last part that I want to mention is the 90-second rule. So this was developed by a brain scientist. Again, they find such fascinating information. And they were able to track norepinephrine, which is that chemical that acts like a hormone that's naturally in your body, but is released in that stress response, and just how long it actually takes to flow through the bloodstream. Now, when they say 90 seconds for that feeling to go through, it's kind of like thinking how long it takes that negative feeling to kind of be recognized, breathe it through, and process it through the body. Now, that doesn't mean that if something is making you sad or angry or frustrated that you should get over it in 90 seconds. Not at all. It's just saying that that chemical actually takes 90 seconds to go through the bloodstream. And so it's just encouraging for us to know that we can process something rather quickly. It doesn't mean that it won't come back and we have to process again, or we won't have a memory of the negative situation and have another negative emotion, or we won't see something that reminds us of the painful feeling and we won't feel that painful feeling again. That's not what it means. It just means when we're actually thinking about it, trying to feel, process, breathe through it, it really only takes about 90 seconds for that chemical to go through. Now, our minds are complicated and they're going to want to go back to those thoughts, and then the feelings are going to come up again. But it's just encouraging to know that I don't have to be upset all day, that if I want to, I can process this quickly, that this can be a short and small exercise, something I could just do sitting in the classroom. Okay, that was hurtful. I'm going to allow myself to feel it. Now I'm going to breathe. I'm going to call it painful, hurtful. I'm sad. I feel hurt. And that's it. Okay, so that is just more science to back up these exercises we're doing. You can see on your handout about it. You could Google that scientist if you want to read more. All right, so now we are on to our last video.